ChatGPT Plus is free for college students through May. Here's the thing. You've got a lot to do between now and then. Studying for finals, writing papers, trying to keep your life on track. And ChatGPT can help with all of it. It can quiz you for your econ exam, make a study guide from your French notes, plan out your meals and study breaks. It can get really specific on how you like to learn. It can even help you come up with ways to stop procrastinating. So from now until summer break, take advantage of all the ways ChatGPT can make your life easier. Restrictions apply.
It's The Other Side of Midnight with Frank Morano.
This is The Other Side of Midnight. I'm Frank Morano. Quite a bit in the news from many different perspectives. Looks like we are seeing some major movement in the Daniel Penny case, including the dismissal of one of the top charges. It's looking like we're seeing some major movement in Syria, where Assad has fled and the rebels have essentially taken over that country. And we're seeing some major movement in the New York baseball community with Juan Soto moving from the Bronx to Queens. Is there anybody that could talk about all of that and have some credibility on those issues and no shortage of opinions on all of those issues? Only one guy, as far as I'm aware. That is distinguished criminal defense attorney Jeffrey Lichtman, who is also the host of the Beyond the Legal Limit podcast. Jeffrey, it's great to talk with you. Thanks for joining me, as always.
Thanks for having me again, Frank.
All right, let's start with the big news. Juan Soto, a New York metropolitan, 15 years, upwards of $750 million. What do you think?
Well, the first thing I find laughable is that I'm seeing in the news so many people like wringing their hands about how much money it is, as if they're the ones that are paying for it. I mean, the guy is like a zillionaire times 100, Steve Cohn. So I think it's a great signing, obviously, even though he's clearly no one's worth that kind of money until the next person breaks the record. I think it's great for the Mets. They have a really wonderful team and a wonderful opportunity. They also stole the thunder from the Yankees and really render the Yankees, a fraction of the team they were last year because he was their first or second best player. I'm curious to see what they do with Pete Alonso because they still need somebody to play first base, and the Mets still have a ways to go, but this could be the greatest Met in the history of their franchise.
Well, let's hope so. Let's hope he doesn't end up like Mo Vaughn and so many other high-profile people signed by the Mets who seem to fizzle out as soon as they wear blue and orange. I'm hopeful on Pete Alonso as well. Obviously, you can't get inside Juan Soto's head, but why do you think he chose to go to the Mets instead of staying with the Yankees? Obviously, same city, comparable amount of money, comparable duration of his contract. I would think, even with all the money that Steve Cohen has, that the Yankees would be able to match whatever price tag Soto was getting from the Mets. What do you think that's all about?
I think it's mostly money. I think he realizes also, not just for himself, but he realizes that Steve Cohen will pay anything to win a championship. The Yankees are notoriously tight-fisted, and there was talk that they made an offer above $600 million. I mean, this was 100% money, no deferred money, $75 million signing bonus. And I suspect the Yankees probably missed out by at least $100 million. Now, when you're a guy like Juan Soto, I mean, $100 million just because you've got the first 665, Frank. I mean, you may spend that. You may need that last $100 million. So a guy like Juan Soto felt that he had to go to a franchise to get that extra money, and I can't blame him. In my mind, I think that once you get past maybe, I don't know, Frank, $400-500 million, maybe you just pick a team that you'd rather play for. Mm-hmm. He did really well in the Bronx. The dimensions of the stadium are great for him. The Yankees are really like, a classy franchise, but at the same time, maybe he wanted to get out of the shadow of Aaron Judge.
That's what my dad, who's a Yankee fan, has said as well, that could be the case. All right, let's talk about the Daniel Penny case. The jury is deliberating. They dropped this most aggressive count because apparently they were not able to come up with a verdict on this. That would, I think the only way to read this is as good news for the defense. What do you think?
Well, of course. I mean, it's fantastic news that they couldn't come up with a verdict on the first count, which strongly suggests they won't be able to come to a verdict on the second count. What I find odd and really kind of pathetic is that they dismissed the first count, which means if they hang on the second count, they can only bring a new trial against Daniel Penny for that second count. And instead of him facing up to 5 to 15 years, which is basically 10 years in jail, he's now, if they retry him, he'd only be facing anywhere from 0 to 4 years. So it smacks a little bit of hypocrisy, and I'm a little bit cynical by why they did it. They didn't have to dismiss it. They could have left it. The jury was already hung on it, and if they hung on the second one, or even if they found him not guilty, they still could have charged him again on the first count. But what it tells me is there's not going to be a second trial here, obviously, regardless of what happens.
Interesting. So let me ask you about this. So the first count, the more serious count that they dropped at the request of the DA's office, was this manslaughter charge. Have you ever seen something like this, either in a state trial or a federal trial, while the jury is deliberating in reaction to a note that the prosecution asks to drop a charge? And whatever your answer to that is, given what you just said, if there's a conviction on this second, less severe count, does that leave the judge here possibly open to reversal?
I've never seen it happen. I've never seen the government drop a charge in the middle of deliberations. I don't even know how it helps them, frankly. I don't really get the point of it for the explanation I gave before. Do I think that it's potentially reversible? I don't think so. I think it's kind of disgusting, though, that they're now amending their indictment, so to speak, in the middle of jury deliberations. It's grotesque. And it shows what this really was from the beginning, Frank. This was just an attempt to get Daniel Penny convicted any way possible, even though everybody knew who saw the evidence, or as much as you can see in the media, that this was a case that was never going to end in conviction. I mean, I've said it 1,000 times to anybody who asks me that it's just simply impossible, because everybody in the jury, in a New York jury, Frank, has ridden the subway, not just ridden the subway, but has ridden the subway when a lunatic is losing his mind. When you're in a locked car, there's nowhere to go, and you see some lunatic, and you're sitting there, and he's threatening people, and you're thinking to yourself, do I sit here and do nothing? Do I just hope that he's crazy and he's not going to hurt anybody? But what if he does hurt someone? Am I going to feel awful later that I had an opportunity to stop him and I didn't? But wait a second. If I try to stop the guy, I know that I've got to knock him out, because he could have a weapon. He could kill me. He could stab me. He could shoot me. So you think to yourself, well, if I do that, is anybody on this car going to stand up for me later? Or are they going to think I'm a killer, I'm a racist, I'm a this or I'm a that? Daniel Penny was an angel, because he did what nobody else really has almost ever done. And for this, Alvin Bragg, who is, the racist in chief in the DA's office in the prosecution in New York City, felt that this is the guy that deserves to be prosecuted, just like he thought Jose Alba. Remember the guy who, the poor old man
owner,
at the bodega, who was cornered by some young thug, some young violent thug, and he basically saves himself from perhaps being killed. Of course, the first thing Alvin Bragg did is, wait a second, this is a black man. We can't have this. Who is the victim? You've got to charge him instantly. Only when he got dragged through the press day after day, suddenly he relented, Frank. What was it about the press that made this story the front page of the newspaper every day, suddenly changed the legal calculus of Alvin Bragg?
Yeah.
Look, anybody, Frank, who's a criminal lawyer in New York City, anybody, any of us know that Alvin Bragg is a racist, because we know how our cases go. The black defendants get one way of treatment. The white ones, holy moly, you can't believe how difficult it is to deal with Alvin Bragg's office when you've got a white defendant.
And I've actually heard from judges that that's a similar dynamic as well. And for instance, the penalties that they seek against white-collar criminals pale in comparison to what they're seeking against violent criminals that go out there on the street. So I don't think anybody would deny that that's the case. At 30 minutes after the hour, this is The Other Side of of Midnight, talking with Jeffrey Lichtman. You can check out his podcast, Beyond the Legal Limit. Now, Jeffrey, in terms of the mechanics of this Penny trial deliberation, one of the things that we were told is that the jury was not supposed to start deliberating on the second count until they'd reached a determination on that manslaughter count. Now that the manslaughter count is out, does that mean that today, or I guess Friday, is the first day that they're starting to look at that negligent homicide count? How does that work?
Well, they can't start deliberating unless they're all together in a room. So you can't deliberate when you're, home, watching cartoons. You can't start deliberating until you're together in the room. And I don't know if they had the opportunity on Friday to meet after count one was dismissed. It may just be Monday morning is the beginning. And they may just look at each other and, there is a difference. I mean, don't think for a second that there's not a difference. And the first count, which was the reckless homicide, the count that was dismissed, the defendant, Penny, has to be aware that the risk that he creates by his actions, which lead to the death of Jordan Neely, that he was aware of the risks and basically ignored them. In the second, easier count, the lower count, he has to just simply fail to perceive the risk that he created by his actions, which led to the death of Jordan Neely. And I just want to say also, I feel awful about this case. I don't want you to think that I'm one of these strident, lunatics who thinks that, Jordan Neely needed to die. Right. This is sad. I mean, this is a guy that had a horrible life. He was drug addicted. He watched his mother get strangled to death by her boyfriend. He had all sorts of mental problems. He had obviously a criminal record. This is someone that should have been put in a home instead of being let loose after he punched an elderly woman in the face, just a few months before. It's wrong. This isn't Jordan Neely's fault. This is the city failing him. This is the truth. I mean, we can't really suggest otherwise. He wasn't a bad guy. He was mentally ill, and he had to die for this. I mean, the whole thing, it's a tragic story all the way around.
No doubt about it. No doubt about it. So if I were to ask you, obviously we know how notoriously unpredictable juries are, but if I were to ask you to make a prediction in this case, at this point, do you think the most likely outcome is a hung jury in a mistrial?
No question.
Really?
I mean, that's I would say, 80% is probably going to be a hung jury. I would say that's probably the case. I don't know if I really doubt that they're going to acquit him because sadly, this case has become a political football, Frank, and it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be that the conservators are saying, right, look, the guy on the subway was just protecting everybody else, and the leftists are saying, no, you can let the guy harass everybody, threaten everybody, do anything he wants to people, but you can't kill him. I mean, it just shouldn't be that way. Anybody in that jury has ridden the subway and has experienced the Jordan Neely at some point in their life. Every one of us, every one of your listeners that lives in New York knows what Daniel Penny was thinking at the time, and all the other scared passengers with children. They were sitting there, well, this guy's saying that he's going to kill somebody? Listen, if I'm there with my baby and some guy says he's going to kill somebody, I mean, I got to tell you, Frank, you're not allowed to carry weapons on the subway. I would certainly think about ending this guy's life. I have a baby there. My kid should have to have his life risked at the generosity of this lunatic who just threatened to kill my kid? No. The truth is it's a wrong prosecution, but this is Alvin Bragg. I mean, he's all about social justice, and here we have it.
Subtle results, still you, but with fewer lines. Botox Cosmetic, out of botulinum toxin A, is a prescription medicine used to temporarily make moderate to severe frown lines, crow's feet, and forehead lines look better in adults.
Effects of Botox Cosmetic may spread hours to weeks after injection, causing serious symptoms. Alert your doctor right away as difficulty swallowing, speaking, breathing, eye problems, or muscle weakness may be a sign of a life-threatening condition. Patients with these conditions before injection are at highest risk. Don't receive Botox Cosmetic if you have a skin infection. Side effects may include allergic reactions, injection site pain, headache, eyebrow and eyelid drooping, and eyelid swelling. Allergic reactions can include rash, welts, asthma symptoms, and dizziness. Tell your doctor about medical history, muscle or nerve conditions including ALS or Lou Gehrig's disease, myasthenia gravis, or Lambert-Eaton syndrome, and medications, including botulinum toxins, as these may increase the risk of serious side effects. For full safety information, visit BotoxCosmetic.com or call 877-351-0300.
See for yourself at BotoxCosmetic.com.
This episode is brought to you by Factor. Optimize your nutrition this year with Factor, America's #1 ready-to-eat meal service. Factor's fresh, never-frozen meals are dietitian-approved, ready to eat in just 2 minutes. Choose from 40 weekly options across 8 dietary preferences, like Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, and Keto. Eat smarter at factormeals.com/listen50 and use code listen50 for 50% off, plus free shipping on your first box. Factormeals.com/listen50. Code listen50. Terms and conditions apply.
Oh my God, it's the coolest thing ever. Hey guys, have you heard of Goldbelly? Well, check this out. It's this amazing site where they ship the most iconic, famous foods from restaurants across the country, anywhere nationwide. I've never found a more perfect gift than food. They ship Chicago deep dish pizza, New York bagels, Maine lobster rolls, and even Ina Garten's famous cakes. Seriously. So if you're looking for a gift for the food lover in your life, head to goldbelly.com and get 20% off your first order with promo code GIFT.
Faraday presenta Ojos con Alergia y Picazón contra el jardinero. Y el ganador es Faraday Extra Fuerte. Para aliviar la picazón de los ojos por alergia, actúa más rápido y supera a Claritin y Flonase aún a las 24 horas. Faraday, adelante.
Yeah, we're talking with Jeffrey Lichtman. You can catch him regularly on Beyond the Legal Limit. It's available wherever you get your podcast. Just search that. And also a distinguished criminal defense attorney that if you ever commit a serious crime, he's a good person's number to have handy as long as you can afford him. If you're just tuning in, this is The Other Side of Midnight. I'm Frank Morano. Jeffrey, lastly on the Penny case, because I want to pick your brain on one or two other things. What about the civil suit here? You know, it doesn't seem that Jordan Neely's family were a great support system for him, but now that there might be some money to be made, boy, oh boy, is his father ready, willing, and able to wrap himself all over Jordan Neely's legacy. And again, I don't want to speak disparagingly of someone that's lost a son. It just seems that if this person was as interested in Jordan Neely's life while he was alive as he seemingly is posthumously, maybe a lot of things would have turned out differently. But where do you see a civil case going, assuming your prediction on the criminal case is accurate, that it's a hung jury?
Well, I mean, look, it's going to be much easier for the plaintiff to get a judgment in favor of I guess, Jordan Neely's estate because the standard of proof is so much easier for a civil case. I still don't think anything's going to come from it. I think this is just obviously a money grab. As you said, if they care so much about Jordan Neely when he was alive, they might have made an effort to get him off the streets. He was homeless at the time. Now, all of a sudden, when there's an opportunity for ching-ching, they're all over, his still warm carcass. I don't think they'll collect anything. Daniel Penny doesn't have any money. He's a young guy. If it goes to trial, realistically, what would even be the damages? It wasn't like he has any kind of future earnings that they could probably try to, say, well, look, he was making $1 million a year for the next 40 years of his life, $40 million. That's how they compute a large part of it. His life, sadly, wasn't worth that much in terms of money.
All right. A lot of other things in the news from a legal perspective, but I know how passionate you are about following what's going on in the Mideast. What's going on in Syria is really incredible. We're seeing the end of the Assad regime after about 25 years in power, and a lot longer than that if you go back to his father as well. He's fled to Russia. Obviously, I think a lot of people are viewing this with some happiness and hope and optimism, but also potentially some concern given the composition of some of these rebel groups that overthrew Assad. I know you're as passionate as anybody about Islamic jihadism and what's going on in the Middle East. Give me your take on where we are with respect to Syria right now.
Well, it's obviously good news, mainly because it completely busts apart the axis of resistance, the so-called axis of resistance that Iran leads. I mean, Iran is the worst Muslim terror group, basically, in the world, and their axis of resistance includes Syria, includes Hezbollah, which is their proxy in Lebanon and next door to Syria, and Hamas and Islamic Jihad, and even the Houthis in Yemen and Gaza. The reason why it's so huge is because the way Hezbollah, which is like a shield for Iran, it basically stopped Israel from attacking Iran, because if they ever attacked Iran, they knew that they had 150,000 rockets from Lebanon just at their north about to land in Israel. So once they decimated Hezbollah. I mean, Hezbollah's not gone, but they're largely decimated. That allowed the rebels to come in because they realized, listen, who's going to stop us? Certainly not the Syrian army. The only way we got stopped last time, which was like in 2018, was because Iran sent their killers in and Hezbollah sent their killers in, and Russia helped as well. Well, Russia's now tied up with the Ukraine and very weak. Hezbollah is nearly gone, and Iran doesn't have air defenses because of Israel. So by now, the rebels taking over Syria, the corridors where the weapons were being sent from Iran into Syria and then through a corridor into Lebanon is no more. So Hezbollah is really, without any kind of lifeline. So this is great news for the Middle East because it basically is defanging the axis of resistance and defanging Iran. Now, what should happen now is Israel should immediately go after and finish off Hezbollah. It's just absolute madness for this to remain much longer, for them to remain in existence much longer, because Iran is racing towards a nuclear weapon. Once they get a nuclear weapon, the entire Middle East, the entire world is going to be at their mercy. Now, you've had Joe Biden for the last 4 years, and you even had Trump before that, where nobody seemed to really care, Frank, that Assad had killed 500 or 600,000 people, that he had tortured his own countrymen, that he had gassed thousands and thousands of them to death. Nobody seemed to care. Nobody did anything. You had Barack Obama who said, if you use chemical weapons on your own people, America's coming in. Well, he did just that. And Barack Obama not only did do nothing, but he ceded control of the area to Putin, who then moved his military bases in and basically has helped Assad stay propped up. So it's absolute madness that we're going to continue along the same status quo of doing nothing and watching as Iran does whatever they want. All of a sudden, Syria fell, Assad fell, and you're watching the head of France, Macron, and you're watching Biden and everybody, Germany, all the leaders are coming out and saying this is the worst tyrannical regime that ever existed, and now it's fallen. Well, where the hell were they for all these years when he was slaughtering his own countrymen? The International Criminal Court, which has indicted the Prime Minister of Israel and the leader of their defense, have been indicted for crimes against humanity. You know who never was indicted by the ICC, Frank? Assad, even after he killed 500,000 of his own people, gassed and tortured them. So it has to happen immediately, finally. Hopefully Trump gets it. I don't know, because I don't really have a lot of faith in Trump that he's going to see this the right way. Immediately, Hezbollah has to be finished off with the help of America, just in the sense that they give weapons to Israel. Nobody's asking America to fight for Israel. And then they have to go after Iran, get rid of the mullahs. They already don't have any air defense system. It's got to be done quick, because if you get rid of Iran, you get rid of their proxies, the entire world changes.
Jeffrey,
it's hugely important.
Trump's made clear that he doesn't want to get involved in this Syria situation. How does, given that likelihood that Trump's not going to get involved in Syria militarily, how do we make sure that what happened in Libya, where basically we go from the frying pan into the fryer, or at least initially what happened in Egypt, where the Muslim Brotherhood takes over after Mubarak, how do we make sure that doesn't happen in Syria, where we get a regime that is basically a state run by an al-Qaeda ISIS type group? How do we make sure that doesn't happen here?
Well, it's a scary possibility. You forgot Iraq as well.
No doubt. I mean, really,
so many Americans died.
Whenever there's elections, just about, it seems like the Islamic jihadist parties tend to do pretty well. Just look at Hamas getting elected in Gaza. So, given that we said that, what happens?
Well, if you take the position that we're not going to ever do anything, then we'll have it again. I mean, that's a fact. I think that the rebels, they're trying to present themselves as reasonable. Of course, they're not reasonable. They're maniacs. They're Muslim terrorists. They certainly would love to go after Israel, but they really are stretched so thin as it is. They don't have a lot of people that are on their side, basically, in Syria. To go after Israel would be completely suicidal. They've seen what Israel's done to Iran, to Hamas, to Hezbollah. If they dare breach that border in the Golan Heights, that will be the end of them. They will cease to exist. And I think that they know that. They're maniacs, but they're not complete idiots. They were smart enough to wait until Iran and Russia were weakened and Hezbollah were weakened before they went in. And look how quickly they routed Syria. So I'm hoping that Trump can control himself and not pull a Joe Biden and say, we're not going to get involved. We're not going to do this. You got to say, look, if you do something, if you step over your one toe over the line, we're killing you all. That's the only way to deal with this. And the idea of the liberals, I can hear them listening right now, Frank. They're hearing me, and they're saying, my God, only peace can work. Tell me something. Was it peace that set the Syrian people free? Was it peace that stopped? They had 5 million lunatics that left their country and have infected Europe and Canada and even the United States? No. It took muscle and it took a war to end that regime. The same thing. You got to stop this idea that everything can be fixed by a peaceful agreement. We're not dealing with rational people, Frank. We're dealing with Muslim terrorists. They're insane.
Jeff, I'm way late here, but I have to ask you about this. I know that you're representing Justin Combs, the son of Sean P. Diddy Combs, so you may not be able to say much on this, but I'm going to ask you about it anyway. It was reported just a few hours ago that Jay-Z is being accused of raping a 13-year-old girl with Sean P. Diddy Combs more than 2 decades ago. This is in the year 2000. The rapper Jay-Z has released a statement calling this lawsuit blackmail. You've seen a lot of blackmail-type lawsuits in your day. What do you make of this?
It's ludicrous. I mean, you've got a handful of bottom-feeding ambulance chasers that sue everybody. I mean, you got to see the other lawyer that's been suing Combs, just a lunatic. And they're just, if anybody that they can possibly use to sue when they know that Combs is vulnerable right now because he's facing criminal charges. They're bringing up stuff from 20 years ago, 25 years ago. Did they ever go to the police? No, none of this stuff, nothing. There's no indicia of reliability, but they figure they can get it into the press and maybe they can get some of that Cassie money because they heard that he settled for, $30 million with his ex-girlfriend. I got to get some of that money. That's 1/3. I mean, now these ambulance chasers, it's difficult for them to divide a number by 3. So it's got to be a number that is a multiple of 3 so they can get their hands on that money. And that's what this is all about. It's hoping to cause bad publicity. And frankly, it's disgraceful. And it's why I don't do personal injury, that kind of work, because I find that I'd rather represent, Frank, a serial killer than be an ambulance chaser. It's just not for me.
Yeah, that's the other Jeffrey Lichtman that people may see advertising on the subway when they're dodging Jordan Neely-type performances. Yeah. All right, Jeffrey Lichtman, always a treat to talk with you. I'll look forward to next time.
Thanks so much, Frank, for having me.
Thank you. If you want to see Jeffrey Lichtman's podcast, or at least listens to it, just go to iTunes, Spotify, any podcast app, and type in Beyond the Legal Limit. Comes right up. If you care to comment on any portion of this conversation, feel free to do so at 646-720-0635. That's 1-646-720-0635. This is The Other Side of Midnight. Straight ahead.